Here we are on the Louis Riel Trail. Yep, it's a scorcher today. It's a little different. We're taking a little bit of a different route through Canada, heading west. So this is the Louis Riel Trail, Highway 11 in Saskatchewan. Pardon me. And Canada Day is just around the corner. And on the news, I've heard that the town of Melville, Saskatchewan, and Larange, due to their proximity to Cowessess First Nation, they're not celebrating Canada Day. They've canceled it. There's been a growing movement to cancel Canada Day because of Canada's colonial policies, ongoing colonial policies as well. It's not like anything's changed. We still have the Indian Act, which is an apartheid act of legislation, and I guess just as an example, the chief of the Paw First Nation was on TikTok talking about the Indian Act, saying that it limits First Nations' ability to produce any sort of economic development. In the old days, you always had to ask the Indian agent if you could sell your cow. Ukrainian farmers never had to do that. Icelandic farmers didn't have anybody to ask. If they wanted to sell their cow, they just went and sold it. But if you're a First Nation, you had to ask the Indian agent for everything. So you couldn't even leave the reserve to sell your cow. You had to have what was called a pass, and it allowed you to enter into town. Then you'd have to ask for a permit to sell your cow. Well, it's the same thing today. First Nations people have to ask the Indian agent for everything before they can do anything. And that's the difference between economic development on First Nations communities and any other small town rural municipality. Anyways, here we are. I guess we're driving away from Cowessess now. But we're still on Louis Riel Trail, and National Indigenous Day was last week sometime. Canada Day is just around the corner here. I think it's on Thursday. And entire towns and cities are canceling it, to the chagrin of our Prime Minister Trudeau and a lot of other leaders throughout Canada. They really don't want to cancel Canada Day. They think that there's really no reason for it. 215 children buried in a mass grave in Kamloops, some of them as young as 3 years old. And then now we found 751 unmarked graves in Cowessess. I better slow her down here, eh? This is almost like a construction zone, even though they said there's no construction zone here. Better slow her down. We're not in that much of a rush, eh? Oh, yeah, eh? Some people want to take pride in Canada, like Canada is the birth of a nation. Uh, there's a lot more to it than just, yeah, Canada came alive, became a nation in 156 years ago, and we built this country up to what it is today. And well, there's a lot more. There's a lot more of the story to it than that. But they don't want you to know too much of the story. They don't want you to know about the lying and the cheating and the backstabbing and the politics and the greed, selfishness, and all of that stuff. No, this country was built on good, honest principles and hard work, and thank God for the farmer. Thank God for the farmer because Canada wouldn't be what it is today. Well, that story, we call that a narrative in academia, that narrative is a load of hogwash. It's a nice story, it's palatable. People want to hear that kind of, they don't want to hear about the reality of it. Too much reality is just unpalatable. No, I'm trying to live my life here. They prefer it if you're ignorant and stupid, and they'll promote you if you're ignorant and stupid. That they just want you to follow orders. In banks, in major corporations, agriculture, don't think, just work. I like my bricklayers big and dumb and stupid. That's what the that's what one of the bricklayer companies back in Winnipeg is well known for saying. I like my bricklayers big and dumb and stupid. So if you're a bricklayer in Winnipeg, that guy's still operating, so according to him, you're big, dumb, and stupid if you're working over there. And those bricklaying companies, they're not stupid. They are associated with each other. They work together to fight against the union down there. So the union doesn't have much of a choice except to bargain. Well, that's the only choice we've all got. Negotiate. Yeah, they want you to think that Canada's history is a history of pioneers and explorers, progress, civilization, and development. We're actually worse off than we ever were. And untold barbarism on the part of the so-called civilized people has brought us to our knees in terms of global warming. Right now in BC, there's a major heat wave. It's historical. There's never been heat like that. It's beating all the records, and it's moving its way through Saskatchewan now. Yeah, nobody wants to think about that stuff. They don't want to wear a mask. They don't want to wash their hands. They want to pretend like there's no COVID-19, no variants, no nothing. Just let's just enjoy the day. Okay, well, I'm enjoying the day. I'm having a good time here. I like I like trucking. I like telling stories. But anyways, for me it's sad because you don't know what it's like, but you do know what it's like. You just don't want to think about it. You don't want to think about your own history, why your parents and grandparents and great grandparents fled the Ukraine. I don't even know if it was called Ukraine back then, 1885. But they were fleeing something because by the tens of thousands they arrived. The British elite didn't want them. They wanted British people to arrive, not Eastern Europeans. They preferred Icelandic people. And between 1885 and 1920, there was over, there was the census figures jumped from 10,000 mostly Métis people in the Red River area, now known as Winnipeg. It jumped from 10,000 to a little over 250,000 people, most of them Ukrainians and Eastern Europeans. And they just kept arriving. I don't know what you were all fleeing. There was some kind of civil unrest in your country. Starvation, hunger, civil war, and that stuff doesn't go away. For generations it doesn't go away. So European people, they have a legacy of their own intergenerational effect from their own historical traumas. And the way they dealt with their historical trauma is usually to drink, act like a Christian, and then act like a sinner all at the same time. That would just screwed your whole family up. And there was patriarchy at the time, so it was allowed if you wanted to slap around your wife, you could slap your wife around and beat your kids and get drunk and stupid and have women on the side if that's what you wanted. That was the patriarchy. That's how it worked. And the racism, the hatred. So you always had some sort of outlet, some sort of unhealthy outlet as Europeans. Some people joined the police and the RCMP to be able to take out their frustrations on innocent people. Later on in the 70s, some of them became serial killers. You know, it may not look like it in the camera, but she cut me off. That happens a lot. They don't know the danger of that kind of driving. They think it's okay. So you kind of know your loss. You know that your parents, you grew up with your parents. They were absent parents. You know what that means? It means they were there, but they weren't there. So you think you know what family is, but you don't know what family is because you've never experienced it. What you've experienced, that's gross. Let me clear that away for you. What you've experienced is a dream. It didn't really happen. It was kind of a bad dream for you. Your parents were dysfunctional. You were living in a dysfunctional family, but it was traditions that held you together and kept you together. Traditions like patriarchy, traditions like Thanksgiving dinner, where you told yourselves bullshit stories about what Thanksgiving means, Christmas, all of that stuff. It helped you to cope with your trauma. Yeah, and incest is not a pleasant thing to talk about, but that's what happened as well. It's quite common. It's quite common on these farms and in these small towns and communities and cities for people of European descent to have their own little family secrets that nobody talks about. And pedophilia, that all comes from the churches you went to. Your Roman Catholic priests didn't discriminate about who they're gonna diddle next. And you weren't allowed to talk about it either. If you mentioned anything about the priest touching you inappropriately, that's it, you were done. The family, you would be excommunicated from the church. The family would be sanctioned by the church and local officials and leaders, politicians. Nobody would want to have anything to do with you if you ever accused one of the priests or one of the ministers of sexual abuse and harassment. So you all kept that quiet in your own communities and in your own families, and you had to endure that all by yourself, all alone. And so when you've got that kind of angst, your behavior would be inappropriate as you got older and it was your time to have a family. You didn't know how to have a family because when you grew up there was no love there either. They didn't know how to love. They were trying, I guess. You gotta try. But it was very dysfunctional. And you're still going through it today. People of European descent in Canada today are still going through that intergenerational trauma of civil unrest in Europe, warfare, starvation. All that trauma that your great-great-great-grandparents, they had no way to cope. The only way to cope really was to go to church, but that's where you got abused again. Because you were vulnerable, easy to exploit. And the predators, they go for the vulnerable ones, the easy prey. And then you were forced to protect them from any kind of law enforcement. And law enforcement wouldn't even want to do anything for you anyways. So that brings us to today. Unfortunately, many Europeans are so dysfunctional and in such denial of their own issues that when they hear about Cowessess First Nation, they minimize it and they go into denial. Not everyone, though. Melville, Saskatchewan, it takes great courage for their leadership to do that. I'm sure a lot of people in Melville didn't want to have anything to do with that. Canceling Canada Day. I'll bet you there's going to be a small faction of them celebrating it. And that's how you get civil unrest in your cities and villages and towns. because some people just won't be respectful, and some people will. Well, that's Melville and Larange. I guarantee you there's going to be some news coming out of that. Um, boo, boo to Moose Jaw. They're going to go ahead and have Canada Day celebrations, but there's not going to be celebrations. It's just going to be fireworks, they say. So it's just sort of half of a Canada Day, but they're calling it a Canada Day celebration. The reason why people are canceling it is because when you kill children and you take them away from family, forcibly remove them from family and community, and you take away their language and their culture, and you assimilate them, and you torture them, and you torment them, and it's real torture. You're literally killing these children and burying them in mass graves out in the backyard. That's not a very proud moment, and people want to reflect on that because they've realized that they've been told a lie about their country, that their country's a great country, and they're coming to terms with the fact that it's not. It has a bloody and gross and disgusting, filthy, dirty, secret history, and they want to reflect on that. They want to acknowledge these truthful findings, these realities. Yeah. So that's that. Beautiful day though, don't you think? Wouldn't you agree? There's a big truck passing me on my left, but I'm just gonna let him pass. I don't think he needs help. He or she or they or them. Slow it down. We got a turn coming up. I don't know why they call this Louis Riel Trail. Pretty sure the Métis walked up and down here quite a bit. Probably created this highway. And it was absconded by Canadians. Taken over. Well, it's kind of a sad day, you know. It's kind of a sad time. We're going to cancel Canada, a lot of us. Canada Day. And you know why? Because all of the treaties with First Nation people, that was all supposed to be done honorably to respect the king and the queen and the royal family over there in Europe, the royal families in France, and England. Uh-oh. You're seeing it. You're seeing it on camera. You saw that. How much time do you think he saved doing that? He or she or they or them. How much time do you think they saved? Was it worth it? Was it worth it to do that for them? See, that's why I always have to look in my rear view mirror to know what's coming behind me, just in case something like that happens. I'll know if I can get into the left lane or not, but I knew I couldn't just jump over because we were at an intersection, and sometimes these little four-wheeler cars, they just come out of these intersections and they just fly past you. They crowd you out, and so you have to handle that kind of a situation with concern for life and property, because some of these trucks are carrying about $10 million worth of equipment sometimes, and property sometimes 3 million, sometimes half a million. But then there's lives in these little cars, right? Humboldt Broncos. So that's not a company, that's a farmer in that truck. Farmers have these trucks. They don't know how to drive them. They don't know how to behave themselves. So that's why you're seeing that kind of driving right now from that trucker. He'll just pull out without regard to life and property. Everybody's got to watch out for him. That's what he thinks. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you see. Yeah, I'm glad you saw that, because that's what we deal with a lot. It's very dangerous. It's very risky. We do have to be careful, because these trucks weigh about, well, empty they weigh 40,000 pounds when they're full and heavy. Here in Canada, you can be heavier than in the U.S., so you can be like almost 90,000 pounds here in Canada. You can't just stop on a dime with 90,000 pounds or 80,000 pounds. So that was pretty stupid. Not sure if it was worth it for that person. I guess it was for that person. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't be driving like that. I got a four-wheeler coming up on my passing lane behind me here. It's moving pretty slow. I'd rather if he was in front of me, so I'm going to slow down here. He or she, or they or them. Elderly folks, they are. Probably about 80 years old. Anyways, it's a beautiful day. Well, we're going to have a Canada Day. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be happy at all. With people canceling it all over the country, towns are starting to verify that they're not going to celebrate it. That's not going to be a happy Canada Day at all. It's going to be a very stressful one. There should be some civil unrest and fighting in the streets on all that. Demonstrations are probably going to happen. There'll be fighting. Police will be called in to stop them, some of them. some of them, some of those police, they're gonna be told to stop. They're, they're going to be told to protect the ones who are celebrating Canada Day. Protect those ones. Probably. If I was a betting person and I'm not, I'd put my money down on that. That police will discriminate. Because historically that's what they do. They like their police big and dumb and stupid. Just follow orders. War Chief out.